Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, College World Series excitement has begun. A first-time player of the week for the Dodgers, and the Angels play Tiger Kings. Or was it Siegfried and Roy? Either way, it's time to uncage some SRBB headlines. For the first time since 1983, we have a new national holiday. In 83, it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This time it's for Juneteenth, 19th of June, marking the day in 1865 when slaves in Galveston, Texas were advised of their freedom. 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and 2 months after the end of the Civil War. The bill making it a holiday passed the Senate unanimously and by a 415-14 vote in the House. It was signed into law last week. Motorcycle stunt rider Alex Harville died after landing short during a practice run preparing for a world record-breaking 351-foot ramp-to-dirt jump. The jump was set up at the Moses Lake Air Show in Washington. Harville was 28. Well, it's been a little warm in the Southwest over the past week, including at what is typically the hottest spot in the U.S. Death Valley hit a high of 130 degrees at the appropriately named Furnace Creek. In 1913, the disputed record high was recorded at 134 degrees. Michael Jackson's 1983 smash Billie Jean has joined Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child O' Mine and a-ha's Take On Me in the Billion Views Club on YouTube. That's right, billion. The fourth member of the club may be another Michael Jackson hit. The title track off of the monster album Thriller has just over 750 million views. Jon Rahm took home the first major title of his career with a total 6 under par performance in the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. Consecutive birdies to finish up locked in the victory. Defending champ Bryson DeChambeau came within inches of the cup on the 8th hole, just missing a hole-in-one.
You can find these and past week's headlines on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com. Remember to rate and subscribe wherever you listen, and tell a friend to listen to the Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast.
We love our listeners. We want you to download and listen to the podcast and share it with others. We just ask you to acknowledge Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast as the source of the material. Please do not, except with our express written permission, distribute or commercially misuse the content.
Man, incredible weekend and week so far in Omaha for the College World Series. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll also take a quick look, update on foreign substances, because that is what we might even be able to change the name of the podcast to the Foreign Substance Report when it comes to MLB. Trade deadline's coming up, the draft. But first, let me address the big thing. No, Jana's not here this week. She is out on assignment. Some call it a vacation, but I think it's an assignment. Yeah. Because for her, she runs everything at her house. And even if they're away, she's still got to carry that load. So she's taking a break. She's on assignment, and she'll be back next week, I think, unless she decides to take a longer assignment. So you're just going to have to deal with me this week talking about all of our favorite baseball things, and she'll come back next week in time for the why we want to go to Omaha is to get a College World Series champion. And it's been pretty cool. Day one, I think the very first game, Vanderbilt, Arizona. Actually, it was the second game. Vanderbilt, Arizona, 12 innings. They go into innings. Vandy pulls it out 7-6, but Arizona looked good throughout that. Kumar Rocker came out to start that game. Didn't look great. Gave up quite a few runs in the first. Then he kind of settled in and started looking like the prospect that we've heard him to be. But it was a tough game, and Vandy ended up holding on to it. Like I said, 7-6, 12 innings. NC State took out Stanford 10-4. So Vandy had moved on to play NC State. They lost. So that's their first, because it's double elimination right now till you get to the winners of each bracket, and then it's a 3-game series for the champion, for the national champion. Vandy played NC State. NC State took them out, and now it looks like Stanford, who lost to NC State, will take on Vandy, and whoever gets that second loss will be eliminated. Like Arizona ended up losing in the losers bracket to Stanford, so they're out already. Stanford and Vandy, whoever loses that one is out, and then that winner will go on to take NC State on. And if NC State wins, then they just skip the next bracket and move right into the national championship game. In bracket number 2, craziness. Tennessee has been eliminated. They've lost 2 games. It started off with a loss to Virginia. The Cavaliers took them out. And then Mississippi State beat Texas. So Virginia versus Mississippi State, which then sent Tennessee and Texas to the losers bracket game, and Texas took out Tennessee. So they're eliminated. We're going to wait for the Virginia-Texas game to see who moves on, as Mississippi State took out Virginia, and Mississippi State moved on. So it just depends on who comes out of who they'll play will to be the winner of the Virginia. So the Cavaliers and the Longhorns will take on Mississippi State. And then once again, if Mississippi State wins that one, they move right into the winners bracket for their division or their bracket of the playoffs. So next week, we will break it all down, how the rest of the tournament played out. This has been some incredible baseball. And that's one thing that I've been thinking about. We constantly are talking about this foreign substance thing. We know it's against the rules. But I think Jana and I have both taken the side of the pitchers, because we've seen what happens when pitchers lose control and people get hit. We've had 2 different players get hit in the face and cause damage, broken noses, fractured bones in the area around the nose, the cheekbones, things like that. But there was something that I read in this last week, and we'll get into details with it, but Garrett Cole said holding on to a baseball is hard. And I thought, this is something you've done since you were a kid. I know that the way that pitchers throw now, trying to put extra spin on a ball to get a little extra break or movement on any pitch, is part of the development, the evolution of the pitcher and the pitches. And having control, being able to hold it is important. And they're throwing so hard. That's the one thing that we didn't have in the past. They didn't throw as hard. And the pitchers that did throw hard were just a few. So, and when I'm talking hard, I'm talking like Nolan Ryan fast, 100 miles an hour. But everybody wants to throw hard. The 2 things in baseball, you want to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and you want to hit long, major, measurement home runs. Those are the 2 things that everybody wants to do. But if you look at somebody like Greg Maddux, I don't think he was putting anything on the ball. He didn't throw as hard as anybody else. He just pitched smarter. And that is part of the overall issue, is that they want to throw so hard. And because we're using so many pitchers, I think that it's like 6 to 8 pitchers a game. So everybody can go out there and empty the tank on every outing. You don't go out there and conserve your pitches. You go out there throwing from inning 1 the hardest, the best pitches you have, and you do that for 3 to 5 innings, and then somebody else comes in, they do the same thing. Instead of having to be smart about it and think about it and work every batter a little differently, figure out a pitch. Sometimes, if you ever notice, sometimes the best out pitch is a changeup, because everybody's looking for the 98-mile-an-hour fastball. The problem, too, is that without control, that ball can get away. That was an issue early on with some of the fireballers. Once again, Nolan Ryan, when he was with the Mets at the beginning of his career, He came up and was sent down again because he had control issues, and as hard as he was throwing, they couldn't take a chance that he was going to actually hit somebody in the head, and that would spell doom for a lot of things. So now we're in that issue that these guys are trying to do so much at one time, and their pitching coaches are either looking the other way or encouraging this. So instead of doing that, teach these players in the minors. Teach them even before that how to pitch and how to not always feel like they've got to throw the ball 100 miles an hour every time out. And not only 100 miles an hour, but they need to have a 100-mile-an-hour curveball. And if you watch, I've seen this season a lot more pass balls because they're spinning, and even if the catcher knows what's coming, if it breaks just a little too soon, hits the ground, it's hitting and spinning, and the catcher normally would play the bounce off to the right or to the left, but it hits and then spins back, and they're already leaning the wrong way. Another thing I thought was interesting with this substance, so Garrett Cole thinks they need it. I think they do, but I don't think they necessarily need it in the same form that they've been using. I think that they need to find something, and I always thought it was the stitching. Raise it up a little bit. That gives him something to hold on to a little better. But because it's so hard for him, maybe he should just quit pitching. On the other side, on his same team, Giancarlo Stanton says they all need to stop it. This is an unfair advantage, and they need to stop. He's even calling out his own players, his own teammates. No more substance. Now, what I recommend, if they're going to take away any kind of tackiness to the ball to help with this and not come to a middle ground on it, is that the players need to start wearing football helmets. Have a face mask on it, or I've seen that in Little League, and I've seen it on TV where they're doing like softball, that the players have a mask on, a face mask that covers, or a cage type thing that covers their face, so that way they're protected. So that might be the way to go. Instead of just having that little arm piece that comes down on the side of the helmet to protect your mouth, just put the whole cage. But like I'm saying, just work it out, get a deal, figure out who's the NFL work with, get your helmets done, and logos on the side and the full cage, and you're protected. That way nothing hits you in the face. If you're a pitcher turning around to bunt, or anybody turning around to bunt, it can just hit you. It'll bounce off the face mask and you're good. All right, so trade deadline's coming up on the 30th of July, and I'm thinking that as we're going, I don't think we're going to see as many buyers as we are sellers. Teams like the Angels, they're going to be out looking for pitching, but I don't know that they're going to have what anybody needs. Yeah, I think they're going to end up standing pat with everything, because why go get it unless it's a good job, good offer, and you're happy with that. I don't see them making a run at the playoffs this year because they can't stop playing 500 baseball. And we'll get more into that when we get to the Angels segment. But that's about where they are. So they're not going to be doing. The Dodgers, on the other hand, I'm sure are going to look probably for at least a relief pitcher, if not maybe a solid starter. And then they're also probably going to look for a right-handed bat, I would guess. But that might be the couple that they're looking for. A couple pitchers or a pitcher and a bat. But once they get everybody back, then they'll get a chance to see what's it like to have our full team back at full strength. And then they'll make their decision. But I'm pretty sure they'll be one that makes some sort of a move. You'll look at teams like the Giants, the Padres perhaps. Tampa Bay, I think, is going to have to make some moves, because who knows what's going to happen with Tyler Glass now and his injury in the long term. Toronto, if they want to get in there and keep playing. So the trade deadline, which is the 30th, I think as we get, probably right as we come out of the All-Star break, we'll be able to see exactly who will be buying. I think the Phillies are going to probably have to fill in some gaps if they're going to compete with the Mets. The Mets, I don't know. They got great pitching. Their players are coming around. We'll see. I think a lot hinges on how well what they have rises up. As long as I don't know if it's enough to make the playoffs if you know you can't go very far in the playoffs. But once you're there, anything can happen. The draft We'll talk a little bit about that as we get closer to the AllStar Game. AllStar Game is just a few weeks away, and this will be the first year that the draft is going to take place then. And then one more thing, and this is part of my change of thought. I kind of got off on the foreign substances a little bit more than I thought I would. But I was looking in San Bernardino, California. They have the Western Regional Little League ballpark. And every year, that's where all the teams that are in the Western region area show up to decide who's coming from the Western region to go to Williamsport to play in the Little League World Series. I, having played Little League in the San Bernardino area, got to play there one time. Unfortunately, not in the Little League World Series Western Regional, but I did get to play there because they set up a couple of games for us to go up there and play, which was fun. And it's a big deal. I've gone to many games there to see the Western Regionals. That takes place the 8th of August through the 14th of August. And then the Little League World Series is taking place the 19th through the 29th. And we'll have a new Little League World Series. We'll have a Little League World Series, which will be cool. But it made me think, with all of this chaos in baseball, the question I got to ask is, are we having fun yet? Because in MLB, there's so much going on the peripheral. And we'll talk more next week about the impact this first week of the stop and frisk program for illegal substances with the pitchers and every player for that matter. The joy of the game is not that and the politics of it all. The game might get shut down because of all these issues. The players are not happy. The owners are imposing their will like they've always tried to do on the players. But when we watch a game, what are we excited about? We're excited about the plays on the field, not that the opposing pitcher got thrown out because he's using an illegal substance. It's a great defensive play. You know, the shortstop diving, getting the ball, throwing them out, or the third baseman stretching out, getting the ball, throwing across the field. A great a dig out of the dirt by the first baseman. Players running back at the wall, leaping, robbing a home run. Also stretching out like Superman to make an incredible catch, or running across the field to do that. Certain hits. Triples are such a beauty. They're so beautiful to watch. Home runs that are monster shots. We love all that stuff. A well-executed bunt. All of those things. That's it. The joy of the game. And when I thought about the Little League, I thought that's where it starts. And as a spectator, that's all I want to see. I just want to watch the game. I'm not about baseball because it's the MLB. I'm about baseball because of the game of baseball. And that's where I want us to find the joy in the game again, about what happens on the field, the plays, the parts. I want to see hitters stop trying to hit it out of the park all the time or strike out. I want to see them start hitting the ball the opposite way, situational hitting. I want to see more base running. Just watching Moneyball the other day, the line, and this was part of that change. The guy says, I steal bases. He goes, no, I pay you. He said, that's what you pay me for. And Billy Bean, Brad Pitt, says, no, I pay you to get on base, not get thrown out at second. And while I understand that idea, I think that's a bad way to do it. When you see these players, we were gushing about Ronald Acuna Jr. when the Dodgers played the Braves, stealing bases, how exciting that was, how much fun that game was to watch, even if it goes against your team, because that's what the game is. What's the point if those things aren't going to be there? If all it is watching somebody try to strike everybody out and be successful, and occasionally we see a home run. That's what makes David Fletcher such a fun player to watch for the Angels. He hits opposite field singles. That's why he's one of the tops in the league at that. There's players out there who can do that, but they're overshadowed by all the guys who are hitting home runs. And even these little guys, that's all they want to try to do is hit home runs most of the time. And it makes players like David Fletcher, Trey Turner, and others like that stand out because they're not trying to hit the long ball. They may do it occasionally, but that's not their goal.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
Well, the Dodgers continue to roll along as if they're headed for another championship. Still some issues that we've talked about here. They continue to talk about with the bullpen, some pitching issues. Looks like starting pitching where they had a couple little issues, some bumps, especially Trevor Bauer. Looks like maybe that's starting to straighten out a little bit. Tony Gonsolin had a couple of good outings over the week. So not a bad week. Really only one loss out of the 6 games. They started off with Philadelphia at home and then traveled to visit the hapless and mostly winless Diamondbacks. We'll get to them in a second. We'll also take a look at Albert's Corner. And as I mentioned earlier, a first-time Player of the Week winner for the Dodgers will be coming up in just a few minutes here. Let's take a look at the Phillies series. Phillies should be a lot better than what they are. They're below 500, but they're in second place in the East. The Mets are the only ones that are in front of them. Will they get over that and get above 500? I would guess otherwise they're completely eliminated from anything. Not that it's going to be hard for them to get in to the playoffs as it is, because right now the Giants and the Dodgers are the top 2 records in the National League. So the Giants would get the West. The Dodgers, and in fact they're the top 2 in baseball. The Giants would take the West. The Dodgers would get one of the wild cards, as would the Padres, who are 8th overall in Major League. But they have the 3 best records in the National League right now. So, like I said, the Phillies, good team. In fact, in the loss, they dealt the Dodgers the first shutout that they'd had since September 14th of 2019. That was in the 3rd game of the series. Dodgers lost that one 2-0. So in the first game versus the Phillies, one thing good happened. They got 10 strikeouts. So that meant all of the LA area could go get a jumbo jack, a jack in the box. 3 runs, 3 hits. The Phillies had 8 hits, but only scored 1 run. Will Smith, 1 for 3, 2 RBIs and a home run. CT3 had a home run as well. Tony Gonsolin went 3.2 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, walked 3, struck out 5. So not bad, especially compared to his last outing. He went a little longer, struck out the same. Actually had 4 strikeouts last time and 5 walks. So the ratio's getting better. And then it took 6 relievers to finish up the game after that. So essentially a bullpen game. And a name that we hadn't seen in a while, Jimmy Nelson, was on the bump for an inning. The second game, didn't get a jumbo jack, but they did get a W, 5-3 win. Mookie, 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a home run. Albert, 2 for 4, and Zach McKinstry 2 for 4 with an RBI. We talked about Game 3 briefly. It was all about Zach Wheeler, the Phillies pitcher. 4.5 WAR. I believe he leads the pitchers. He may lead all players in overall WAR right now in major leagues. Steven Souza Jr., who had got called up, got his first hit with the Dodgers. And then Kershaw. Not a bad outing, 6 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts. They just couldn't get anything on the board. Kershaw didn't have a bad outing. They just didn't have any offense. Then what happens when you have no offense? You go to Arizona, because that can get you back on track, right? Well, not that they were off track, but it did help. They rolled in there. They took Game 1 3-0. Now the cool thing to me is that the Diamondbacks were wearing jerseys, and instead of the Diamondbacks on it said Serpientes. So like serpents, but like the snakes there, had a little rattler tail on the end of the S on the last part. But those are probably the best looking uniforms I've ever seen them wear. Out of everything that they have, they were just deserty colors. They were like a tan and with black hats. They looked pretty sharp. They didn't play good, but they looked sharp. Souza again steps up, 1 for 3 with an RBI. Trevor Bauer did his work. Looks like he was back to form. 7 innings pitched. Only gave up 3 hits, no runs, struck out 8. We didn't get a jumbo jack, but once again got the W. And when you're in Arizona, if you don't walk away with a sweep, it seems kind of disappointing. So, did they? Well, game 2, they absolutely got one step closer, and they won the series with a 9-3 victory. 14 strikeouts, so jumbo jacks all around. Justin Turner, 2 for 5, 3 RBIs, and a double. Will Smith, 3 for 4 with a home run and 2 RBIs. And then Walker Buehler stepped up, 7.1 innings pitched, 2 hits given up, 2 runs, and 11 strikeouts. So another great outing. Quietly, just going about getting his job done. CT3 also, All-Star candidate. CT3, home run and 2 RBIs. Now, in Game 3, it looked like they were feeling bad because the Diamondbacks were like on a 17-game losing streak or something like that. They haven't won a game on the road since Madison Bumgarner threw his unofficial no-hitter. They haven't won since then. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Around the League. Now, they were up 9-1 at one point in this game, the Dodgers were. Only 8 Ks, no jumbo jack. Up 9-1. A.J. Pollock, 2 doubles, 3 for 4, 3 RBIs. Albert Pujols had a 3-run home run and went 2 for 5. Tony Gonsolin even went 1 for 2 with a double and pitched 3.2 innings, gave up a run on 3 hits, struck out 2. But they got to the 8th inning. David Price came in, gave up a run, not a big deal. Uceta came in, had 1 great inning, threw like 7 pitches, I believe it was. Maybe it was 11. Boom, got out of the inning. The next inning, terrible. He gave up 5 total runs. Victor Gonzalez came in and relieved Uceta, and he inherited 2 runners, and both of those runners scored. So all of those went to Uceta, who just, that was a contrast of a good inning and a bad inning. How good he possibly could be and how bad he really could be, and maybe more likely is. Ketel Marte, I saw him hit a double. I was doing something. I come back and I sit down, and he had hit another double, but I thought they were replaying the previous double. Maybe he was coming to bat and they were just showing what he did. No, he hit another double, and then when he got to second base, he made the same whatever the Diamondbacks do to get excited, and everybody's doing it back to him from the bench. So he's a doubles machine, and he should be an all-star as well, I think. He's playing for a really bad team, but he's stepping up. I would suspect that he might very well be on the trading block. He may not be a Diamondback or a Serpiente by the trade deadline. Speaking of all-stars, Max still number 1 on the all-star list at first base. CT3 is in the top 9 of outfielders, which is good for him, and he'll advance to the next round of voting. Gavin Lux at number 3 at second base. JT at number 3 at third base. Corey Seager at number 3 at shortstop, and Will Smith is number 4 at catcher. In order for him to move on to the next round of voting, he's going to have to be in the top 3. The outfield is the top 9. So we may see quite a few Dodgers on the All-Star game. Dave Roberts is the coach. So I would say if CT3 doesn't make it through the voting, I think he'll make it because he deserves it. He should be there. Should be no question about him being an all-star. All right, before we take a look ahead at the coming week and the weekend and the player of the week, let's head on over to Albert's Corner. Another great week for the future Hall of Famer. Albert played in 5 games, went 5 for 15, batting .333 on the week. Had a home run, 3 RBIs, 0 strikeouts. He did ground into 1 double play. But overall, like I said, a great week. Somebody mentioned he would be a great candidate for the home run derby. Be his last one. He's got 673. He's the current home run leader in baseball. He's got 2,128 total RBIs. Right now he's like number 5 all time on home runs and doubles, and then number 3 on RBIs. He only needs 23 more home runs to pass A-Fraud, and that's what I'm rooting for. I know that that could be tough. He needs to start hitting them at a little better clip. But that was a great week for Albert. Like I said, batting .333. He's, once again, as we harp on all the time, every time we do this segment, we talk about what a great pickup he is. And it's even better for the Dodgers because the Angels are paying $30 million of his contract. So we'll check in again next week at Albert's Corner. For the first time in a lot of years, the Dodgers are the underdog going into San Diego. This week they play San Diego in San Diego, and then they come home for the Cubs, and the Padres are favored to win. How strange is that? So next week we'll talk about what really happened this next edition of the Padres-Dodgers series. And then, of course, Jock Peterson, will get to come home to Dodger Stadium. Jock is moving up in the All-Star balloting as well, so maybe he'll make it to the All-Star game too and be there with his old manager, Dave Roberts. They've also got San Francisco, another interdivision matchup, and then they'll be heading to Washington coming up in the coming weeks. Time for Player of the Week, and this week it's somebody brand new, and I thought this might be the guy to give it to, just in case when all the other guys come back, when Bellinger and Max and Corey, everybody comes back, he doesn't get sent down or DFA'd. It's Steven Souza Jr. So let me tell you a little about him. He tore up his knee in 2019 and thought he was pretty much done. I mean, like completely tore it up, a lot of surgeries. He's 32, and he's thinking his playing days are over. Back in 2017, he was with the Rays, had a 30 home run season, but things just weren't happening for him, and he was starting to doubt himself. And he got DFA'd by the Asterix. The Asses let him go, and he had gotten a few offers, but the Dodgers called him up, talked to him, and he knew that the Dodgers had a really good reputation of getting players back on track. Look at what Max Muncy's done as a Dodger. He was on his way out of baseball as well. So Steven Souza Jr. comes up. In the week, he goes 3 for 12, batting .250. It's okay. Had a triple, a home run, 2 RBIs, scored a run, and walked once. And he gets the Dodgers Player of the Week this week. Way to go, Steven Souza Jr. And remember to continue to vote for your favorite Dodgers for the All-Star Game, especially CT3 and Max. Both of those guys fully deserve to be there. Well, after a wonderful week last week where they went 7-0, the Angels went to Oakland and promptly got swept by the A's. In the first game, they lost it 8-5. Now, here's the thing that this shows you why they're a 500 team, in my opinion, aside from the pitching problems. With 14 hits compared to 9 hits for the A's, they could only get 5 runs. They're not scoring the runs. They're not driving the people in. You're getting a hit here. You're getting a hit there. Base running errors happen as well. But for whatever reason, they just couldn't get it going. So they get the hits, but no runs. So who cares how many hits you have if you can't score any runs? Julio Iglesias went 4 for 5. Fletch, 4 for 5. Lagares, 2 for 5 with a home run and 2 RBIs. For the most part, doesn't really matter. I mean, that's good for your personal stats, but it's not great for the team. Dylan Bundy only went 2 1/3 innings, gave up 7 runs on 5 hits, a home run. He's got a 6.98 ERA. He's given up 14 home runs and 59.1 innings pitched. That means he's giving up a home run every 4.22 innings. It's just like constantly. Dylan Bundy just wasn't that guy last year, and now he just can't get away from it. Game 2, really nothing notable happened for the Angels. They did score 4 runs, but they dropped that 6-4. Elvis Andrus, who's been surging for the A's, they were kind of regretting getting him. He's actually stepped it up 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Both of those hits were doubles. And then game 3, 8-4 loss. Shohei got number 19, but they just couldn't put it together. Griffin Canning, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 home run, so not a bad outing. It was Tony Watson and Steve Cishak that just let it all fall apart. Tony Watson in the 6th inning couldn't get anybody out. He faced 6 batters, gave up 5 hits, a total of 6 runs. Cishak, he helped with that because he inherited 3 runners and let 2 of them score. And once again, what's ailing you can usually be cured by a bad team coming in, and that's just exactly what they got. They got the Tigers for 4 there at home, and things worked out. It was the game 1, 7-5 win. Taylor Ward, in his first ever bases loaded at bat, hit a grand slam. 1 for 4 with 4 RBIs. Jay up 2 for 5. Shohei went 6 innings, gave up 5 hits, 1 run, struck out 5, and he gave up a home run as well. But it didn't hurt him. The next night, it was a blowout, 11-3. Jay up with 3 for 4 and 3 runs. Taylor Ward stepping up again. 2 doubles, 3 for 4, 3 RBIs. Shohei, Rengifo, Walsh all hit home runs. Stassi and Jose Iglesias both had no hits, which has been odd for those. Stassi stepped up in other places, but that was an odd thing. Alex Cobb, just 5 2/3 innings pitched, gave up 3 hits, only 1 run, and struck out 8. So a good night for him, better than his last outing. The next night, it was 8-3. Shohei hit number 22 and went 1 for 4, 2 RBIs. Jared Walsh, 2 for 4, and 2 RBIs, a home run, and a double. Fletch is working his way back up, 3 for 3, 2 RBIs, 2 runs. Jay up at 2 for 5. And then the final game of the whole series. So they had been Tiger Kings. They had controlled the Tigers all the way through. But on Sunday, it was Siegfried and Roy. And I'm not talking like the cool show that you could see in Vegas. I'm talking about the night that the Tiger got the best of Siegfried and Roy. And I don't remember which one it was. Was it Siegfried, I think, or Roy, that got bit and drug off the stage by the Tiger and completely injured by the Tiger. That's what happened in game 4. The Angels lost 5-3. It was 1-1. The Tigers go up 3-1. And the one was Jared Walsh. He hit a home run, was 3 for 4 with an RBI. Fletch, 2 for 4. But it was Shohei who came in, hit a home run, tied it up at 3-3, but then they couldn't stop him, and Tigers ended up scoring 2 more to take it 5-3. All right, all-star voting for the Angels. Trout still number 1 in the outfield. Fletch is also trending in there. He's number 5 or number 6 in the all-star balloting, but I mean, he's number 5 at second base. He's number 2 in Major League Baseball in singles behind Trey Turner, who's also not in the top 3 at his position in the National League. He's from the Nationals. Former National third baseman Anthony Rendon is 5th in the All-Star Game voting. Not sure he deserves to be there. He's just a known name, but he's not having a great season. I want to see him. My concern with him is he's going to end up being in the same spot that people saw Albert in, that he's just not contributing that much. Jared Walsh in 4th place in All-Star voting, so we need him to get to 3rd so he moves on. Now, I hope that Kevin Cash, who will be the American League manager in the All-Star Game, will see him for who he is and bring him on. Ohtani is leading his category in the DH. Trout's there. Not that Trout will be there at the All-Star Game as a player because of his injury, but I'd like to see Jared Walsh. And then the guy who's in 5th in voting, Matt Olson from the A's. He definitely deserves to be there. He's having a great season and definitely leading his team, making them, one of their second right now because the asterisks are surging. Well, before we move on to see what's coming up next week and who our player of the week is, let's shine the spotlight on Shohei. Another great week for Shohei, doing things nobody's done in over 100 years. He's tied for 1st in extra base hits. He announced this week he's going to participate in the home run contest. And who knows, in the All-Star game, he'd be the DH and maybe even pitch, which we know would be awesome for baseball. For the whole world to see what this kid can do, that would be great. Over the 7 games, he played in all of them this week. He was 8 for 27 with a .296 batting average, hit 6 home runs over those 7 games, 9 RBIs, 5 walks, struck out 8 times, had a stolen base, grounded into 1 double play. He also pitched, went 6 innings, gave up 5 hits, gave up 1 run, and that was a home run, struck out 5, and walked 2. And like I said, in the DH category, he is the leader for the All-Star game. Right now, he's got a 1.163 whip, so that's pretty good. Like I said, we're going to see more and more of Shohei. He's on pace to have 50-some-odd home runs, and it just looked like he would have, right now he looks like he would have a great season whatever position he was at. And maybe they'll get to a point where they put him so he's more regular in the rotation. So the Angels finish up their season series with the Giants this week. They'll be at home, and then they travel to St. Petersburg to take on the AL East leading Tampa Bay Rays. And then after that, they'll head up to see the Yankees, who will make their way out to Angel Stadium at the end of August. This week's Player of the Week, David Fletcher. Over 6 games, he 12 for 22 for a .545 batting average, on-base percentage of .565, 3 doubles, 5 RBIs, a base on ball, didn't ground into any double plays. His lowest batting average, which was fairly early in the season on the 9th of April, was .194. He's been building up ever since, and he's brought it back up to .285 on the season. So another Player of the Week honor for Fletch, and I expect he's going to probably continue on with this performance. Time to check in on the randomness of Around the League. We never know where we're going when we start here, except for one place. We always know where we're going to start, and that's with the Players of the Week for the MLB. The AL Player of the Week, 6 home runs worth, got him there, was Shohei Ohtani, grabbing his 3rd Player of the Week award, and back-to-back, because last week, remember, it was Max Stassi. So Shohei gets it for the American League. Another guy who hit 6 home runs, he did 5 in 2 days, breaking a record. Kyle Schwarber of the Washington Nationals grabbed his 1st Player of the Week award. 6 home runs in that week, 11 RBIs, hit 3 home runs on one day, and then 2 the next for 5 in just 2 games. So way to go, Kyle Schwarber. And then, of course, we're always rooting for Shohei. The Yankees did it again. 2 triple plays in 1 week. What's interesting is on the season, the Yankees have 3 triple plays. That's more, 3 is more than the D-backs have wins since like the end of May. So triple plays are what the Yanks are all about. If they could get everything else going, I think they'd be at the top of the East, or at least challenging Boston and Tampa Bay. But they're still having their issues, uneven play. All right, we'll check in on Jake DeGrom watch in just a little bit. One of those triple plays for the Yanks, bad base running by the Buffalo Blue Jays. It was just so bad, you'd have to see it. Just go and find it, and it just was really bad base running. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten the triple play. We talked about it earlier about curses. The Diamondbacks haven't won a road game since Bumgarner's unofficial no-hitter. The Orioles also have not won a road game since John Means pitched his no-hitter. So is that some kind of a weird curse? And then on top of it, Jana pointed this out, the pitchers, a couple of them, John Means, Corey Kluber, both injured right after they threw their no-hitters. So is this no-hitters becoming the new curse? Guess we'll have to keep watching. Let's look at the All-Star Game voting just briefly, because I noticed something was happening, and I believe there is something rotten in Denmark. Foul play is afoot. But before I get there, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is leading all vote getters. Ronald Acuna Jr., still in the lead in the NL. Phase 1 of the voting, done today. The top 3 move on. Outfield, it's the top 9. Phase 2 will be voting on for 4 days, and everything resets. So the people that are at the top now won't necessarily stay there. They probably will. Who are we kidding? But they may not stay there because you got to start voting again. And that's the big push. If we can get CT3 as a starter, we need him in the top 3 out of the 9. That would be fantastic. Speaking of who should make the All-Star team, another guy that I've been thinking about lately that I think is probably being considered, but should he be there, is Yermin Mercedes. Remember him from the Chicago White Sox? Beginning of the season, he started off like 8-8, and he was hitting home runs. He was doing that. He pitched, and he was just on fire. Well, like a lot of things like that, it's not sustainable, and it's not even. He's dropping like a rock from being at the top of the batting average for MLB. He's down towards in the lower 200s now. It's not. He's not having. It was unsustainable success, but he's not able to stay consistent with it. It doesn't look like. So based on his start and where he is now, should he be an All-Star? From my standpoint, I don't really think so. All right, let's head on over for some Jacob deGrom watch. deGrom was the first pitcher to be checked for illegal substances with the new rules going into play. They stopped him. It being New York, it was kind of like a stop and frisk move. They checked his hat. They checked his glove. They had to check his belt. I don't really know how they did that one because he didn't take his belt off or anything, and they didn't look around all the belt loops. But random checks of players, the pitchers at some point have to be checked. They're checked when they leave the field or at the end of the inning, depending on what happens. It didn't stop him from having a good outing. Now, he's just one bad outing away from his ERA ballooning up. But right now, it's .50. They're only getting, it's not every game. He's not even giving up a run every game. That's how, a half a run every 9 innings. So it's pretty incredible. He's got a 4.5 WAR. Here's a good one. His batting average is .407. So he's helping himself at the bat. He's pitching around everybody. His teammates all say he doesn't use anything. Can he stay healthy? Because he's had shoulder soreness. He's had other little ailments back and forth. Can he make it through the whole season? And can he hold on to that ERA? I don't know that he can keep it under 1, which would be incredible and maybe one of those unbreakable records. But I think he can keep it under Bob Gibson's record, and that's really all he needs to do. And that puts him in pretty good. And Bob Gibson threw hard, and Bob Gibson was mean. Jacob deGrom not throwing at people. Bob Gibson would, and that's what made Bob Gibson so great. If I had to choose, I would probably watch Bob Gibson pitch more than I would watch Jacob deGrom. But I would like to see them go against one another. Vintage, great, 1968, Bob Gibson when he set the record versus Jacob deGrom right now. That would be incredible. All right, we're going to skip the IL this week. There's still players. George Springer is due back in this week for the Buffalo Blue Jays. So we'll see next week how his time back from the IL works out for him. But that's Jana's thing. She loves the IL so much that I don't want to step into her lane. I'm going to stay in my own lane, which is driving serpentine down the highway like the Serpientes. Yeah, I know. I think I'm funny. Speaking of Buffalo, Alek Manoah. You remember him? We talked about him a few weeks ago. Feel-good story. Rookie pitcher. Mom's in the stands. Mom used to go hungry so that the kids could eat. She was there for them all the time, and gave up so much for her son to make it to the majors. He's suspended for intentionally throwing at Maikel Franco in a game versus the Orioles at Camden Yards. He had a 5-game suspension is what he was given. His manager, Charlie Montoya, is serving his 1 game sometime this week. Of course, Alec is appealing his 5 games. And talking about other players getting suspended, Joey Votto. Now, this is a feel-good story, not Joey Votto got in trouble for arguing balls and strikes, essentially. He's thrown out after being struck out. It was a check swing that they went to the base umpire. He said he went around on it, so he's mad. He said something about the umpire or towards that umpire, the third base umpire, and then he's walking back, and he heard something behind him, which was the home plate umpire said something to Votto. Nobody knows what, except probably the catcher. Votto turns around, says something, and comes at him, and just losing his mind. Ends up getting thrown out, as does David Bell, his manager. And David Bell didn't even know he got thrown out. He went out there to get Joey to avoid him being thrown out. The feel-good part of the story is there's a young girl there, and they're playing in San Diego. So they're at Petco Park. Her and her family are Reds fans. She's 6 years old. Her name is Abigail. And she's a big Joey Votto fan. And this is her first baseball game. First time she's ever been to a game. She gets to see Joey Votto, her favorite. She's wearing a Reds t-shirt with Joey Votto's name and number on it. And then her parents have to explain to her that Joey got thrown out of the game. He's not going to be playing anymore. This is the first inning, mind you. And I guess she was pretty upset about that. Now, she'd been having a good day. Former Dodger Kyle Farmer had given her an autograph, and the players were all that. Well, the mom, Abigail's mom, posted, I don't know if she tweeted or Instagrammed, and said that her daughter was upset. Picture of her, tears coming down her face. Well, the Reds saw that, and we're going to hook her up with some swag, some Red swag, including a ball. Joey Votto, a little bit later, after he's cooled down in the clubhouse, heard about this, signed a ball, and wrote on that, "Sorry, I didn't finish the game." Signed it off. Got that to her. Apparently that and the popcorn that her parents had gotten her, she was feeling better about everything. She got to enjoy her first ball game just without her favorite player. She got to see him come up and bat at least once, but he's going to go ahead and take the suspension. It was a 2-game suspension. It was appealed. He got 1 game, so he's going to do that, and he was fined an unspecified amount. So cool for Joey Votto and the Reds for building fans. I know it's like, hey, we gave her something, we're kind of buying it, but no, she was disappointed, and you acknowledged her, and she's going to be there. She'll be an ambassador for the game going forward, unless, of course, the next game she goes to, Joey Votto gets thrown out again, which at that point, just stay at home, Abigail, and watch the games on TV. Go to other games, just don't go to the Reds games. All right, standings right now, the top 6 in Major League Baseball across the board. San Francisco with the best record, followed by the Dodgers, then the Asses, the A's. Yes, the Asterisks have overtaken the A's. They've been on a roll, and I got to go back to the AllStar Game thing in a second. The Red Sox and the White Sox, that's the top 6. The Red Sox and the White Sox have identical records currently. The Padres are down at number 8. But they're close in there, and like I said, the National League the playoffs will be the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Padres based on how it's going now. The Central, it's back and forth with the Cubs and the Brewers. And then in the East, right now it's the Mets. Nobody else is playing well enough. And like I said, with the Brewers and the Cubs, they're both behind the top 3 West teams. So they're not going to, I don't think they're going to make it into the playoffs, but things can change. And I really think that the Dodgers are going to, once they get everybody back, and the trade deadline is going to be coming up, they're going to trade for a pitcher. I think they're going to move in front of San Francisco. It's just going to depend on how the late season series versus the Padres and the Giants go. I'm absolutely sure there is something going on with the All-Star Game balloting. I know that players can have surges, things can change. Maybe the whole city or the fandom of a team could get together and have, through a concerted effort, vote. But based on their past, I think that the Asterisks are trying to cheat their way into the All-Star Game, because a lot of these players that are all of a sudden, it's all asterisks who are jumping up. Yuli Gurriel, he wasn't in the top 3 of first basemen. Nobody even knows who Yuli is except for his hair. Nobody cares about him, but all of a sudden, he's number 2. He's got a long way to go to try to beat Vladdy Jr. at first base, but he's not an all-star. But all of a sudden, he's jumped ahead of Jose Abreu, who was the MVP last year even. There's just no way. It didn't just happen all of a sudden, boom, he's up there. Jose Altuve, he got some votes early on, and he's been up there because people know they always like to vote for a little guy. Alex Bregman, he's jumped up to number 2. And they're not overcoming just a little bit. They're overcoming a lot. Carlos Correa wasn't even in the top 3. Like Yuli Gurriel wasn't in the top 3. Carlos Correa is now number 3 ahead of Tim Anderson, who definitely is better than Carlos Correa. We need to get Chicago doing that. So I think that MLB, I think Manfred specifically, wants to make them look better. He's manipulating the vote on behalf of his team, the Houston Asterisks, who we know have cheated in the past. So why wouldn't they be manipulating this? Somehow they've hacked into the system and they're pushing more votes through. It has to be. There's no way that they've gotten, maybe Michael Brantley, who leads MLB in batting average right now, but he moved up from 9th to 6th place. And Kyle Tucker isn't in the top 9, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes like Cedric Mullins, who just moved into the top 9 from Baltimore, out. Randy Arozarena's not even in the top 9. I feel like there's something wrong here, and they're going to end up getting a couple of guys on the team that shouldn't have been. And I'm hoping that in phase 2 they all get eliminated from the vote. They got to have at least one player on there. Zach Greinke. Let him be, one of the pitchers. Everybody else, go home. Nobody wants to see you. You didn't get any kind of punishment, and now you're going to cheat your way onto the All-Star game and get no punishment for that either. All right, so that's my conspiracy theory about the All-Star balloting. Man, what is that noise? What is that coming out of left field? Well, it's not Superman. It's not a plane. It's Maya, the Bionic bird. Yes. When I was a kid on TV, one of the big shows that I watched, I wasn't a kid on TV. I watched shows on TV when I was a kid, programs. And one of the big shows from 1974 to 1978 was The $6 Million Man. We have the technology. We can rebuild him. And I love that show. And it was $6 million. So in the 70s, that was huge. $6 million to put this guy back together. That's incredible. That's a lot of money. So Steve Austin was awesome. And then, there was a spin-off, The Bionic Woman. Jamie Summers was the Bionic Woman. Same kind of thing. They had kind of different things. They could both run really fast. One had the bionic eye, so you could see in. I think Jamie Summers had the bionic ear. They were in crashes or had injuries, and so they rebuilt them. Right now, it would be the $33 million man if it was on TV right now. So over in Vienna, at the medical university, scientists there, and I guess these are some of the top experts in limb reconstruction there, have created what they call the first bionic bird. Apparently, Mia, who's a vulture, has been pretty much born and raised in captivity. And so she's been around. She got this injury when she was a small chick. Her parents built a nest for her and siblings, I assume, and they had some wool fibers in there that wrapped around Mia's foot, which basically cut off the oxygen to her foot. And so they ended up amputating that foot. So that impaired her ability not only to fly, but to hunt and to walk around, because they really use those talons. Those feet are very important. They're swooping down to grab something. like, there she goes again. She just went by again, swooping down to grab something. So they rely on the legs to hunt, to propel themselves into the air. Lucky for her, she was in captivity, but out in nature, she would have just died. And it's survival of the fittest, I guess, because her parents they're only going to feed her so long. Then you got to figure out how to do it on your own. So they basically built her a new foot so that she could land and walk and grab things. And she's been out flying. She's landed on it. So really, overall, it's not like she's got a prosthetic wing or something like that. She's just got a bionic foot. But cool for her. And of course, what I think they want to see is, how much more can they do? They do this and it works almost as if it was normal. I think one of the scientists that have done this, did this work with her, has used on prosthetics on humans that it's brain controlled or mind controlled. Just like any of us with our limbs, we think about moving our hand moves. This is the same kind of thing. It's attached to a metal anchor. It's dirt repellent. It's waterproof. It doesn't resemble a typical bird foot, but it takes care of her needs. And I think maybe she feels like a whole bird again if she didn't before. She's a bearded vulture, and she can land and walk using both feet. And I'm excited for Mia, the bionic bird.
And that'll do it for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at siblingrivalrybb.
We're also on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com. We'd love to hear what you think, so subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast.
Next week on SRBB, Jana is back from assignment, and she'll share her thoughts on the Dodgers-Padres series, among other things. And there will be a champion crowned in Omaha.